Hello everyone, welcome to Module 6. This week we are focusing on computers in the medical office, managing those medical records, and talking about telephone communication. So with that, there are 3 chapters we're focusing on. That's going to be Chapter 7, Chapter 12, and Chapter 13. Now for this video, I'm going to go in a little bit of kind of an odd order. I'm going to talk about Chapter 12 first, then I'll address Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. So let's go ahead and start that. So Chapter 12 is dealing with computers in the medical office. Now computers play an important role in the medical office, from diagnosing our patients, monitoring our patients, and reporting their progress. Computers help to enhance the quality of care through data collection, which helps to eliminate duplicate work and decrease errors. Computers are also valuable because they help to eliminate some of the more time-consuming tasks, such as scheduling appointments, charting, billing, and insurance processing. Now, it also helps to eliminate errors that are made in documentation either from the provider or from the medical assistant. So in order for the medical assistant to really be successful in both the clinical and administrative areas, we need to be familiar with computers, their parts, and how they are used. So let's go ahead and talk about those. So some of your computer basics here that you really need to know are some things that, you may be very tech savvy and know all about it, but maybe there's some of you in your class that don't really know too much about computers. I am typically one of those people who are not super tech savvy, but I've learned them through the process of going, into medical assisting and then also teaching it. So if you're one of those tech savvy people and you know all of this stuff, bear with those who do not know and maybe help them through it. Show that teamwork. But computers are really made up of 3 components. They are made up of hardware, software, and storage and security. So let's talk about those a little bit more in depth. So we're going to start with hardware. Now this is referred to as the Central Processing Unit, or your CPU. The CPU is essentially the traffic controller of all computer activities. So another way to think about this is the CPU is really the brain for your computer. The hardware also consists of input and output devices. Your input devices include things such as keyboards, mouses, touchscreens, microphones, scanners, and cameras, where your output devices are monitors and printers. So an easy way to think about this, something you have to put into the computer or attach to the computer is your input, and then something that gives something back is your output. So your monitor gives back information, a printer gives back information or gives out information. So those are your output devices. From your hardware, we then move to what we call your software. So this is essentially the instruction manual that allows your computer to do its functions. It's also called the operating system. What that does is it helps your computer to run. So for example, we have Windows, iOS, Mac OS, and Unix. Those are all examples of your software. Computers can also have application software. So the most common type of application software is called general purpose. Some things that fall under that are Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office, which Office contains all of the things such as Word, Excel, Access, PowerPoint, Publisher, all the things that you're probably at some point in time going to get to work with if you haven't already. Another software application could be something like Skype that allows you to communicate with people using your actual computer on your laptops. And lastly, we have our storage and security. So safety on computers is really important, but what it does is it includes regular maintenance, password updates, antivirus protections, and HIPAA compliance. Excuse me. As a medical assistant, it is really important and essential that you understand that other patients should not be able to see computerized records. For this reason, HIPAA developed a security rule, and this provides the nation standards for protecting electronic health protected information, or EPHI. Some of these safeguards include administrative safeguards, physical safeguards, and technical safeguards. The administrative safeguards are designed by a privacy officer. We conduct training programs about protected information and having a backup or recovery plan in case of emergencies. Physical safeguards means being able to prevent unauthorized persons from physically accessing the data, and technical safeguards use electronic protections to prevent unauthorized access over the network. So that is Chapter 12 for us. We're going to move on now and talk about Chapter 7, which is dealing with telephone etiquette. Like computers, the telephone is one of the most vital tools used within the medical office. The key is that within the office, to ensure every person and every phone encounter is not only courteous, but also efficient, accurate, and professional. Attention to detail is required when you're answering the phone, taking a message, or taking a request for a refill. The fundamental rule to remember when you're answering a phone in the medical office is to not answer it like you would at home. It's not, I'm going to pick up the phone and be like, hey girl, what's up? Did you hear about what I did this weekend? No, we're going to act in a more professional manner. So most offices will typically provide you with a script when you're answering the phone. But as always, make sure that you are pleasant and professional. When you're answering the phone, there are 5 simple rules and things to keep in mind. So number 1, you want to smile. Always answer the phone with a smile in your voice. Act like you want that patient is right in front of you. Greetings. You want to make sure that when you're answering the phone, you do so quickly, typically within 3 rings. For your greeting, you always want to include the name of the office or the physician, your name, and ask the caller how you can be of assistance. So for example, when I answer the phone in my clinic, I will answer it and I will go, OSF Medical Group, Rock Cut, this is Corey, how can I help you? I've hit all of those things. I've said where they're calling, the name of the office, I've said my name and asked them how I can help. And I did so with a smile in my voice so they know that I'm there to help them. Speech is number 3. You really want to make sure that you are using clarity. That just means that you can be understood. Make sure when you're speaking on the phone, nothing is in your mouth. No gum, no candies, no sodas, no drinks, nothing like that. Use enunciation, meaning you want to articulate your words and pronounce them clearly. And watch your pitch or tone of voice. You don't want to sound like you're angry, but you also don't want to sound like you're being overly nice because that comes across as rude. Always identify the caller. And how we do that is we ask for the patient to identify their name and their date of birth. That's the only way that we can know them. And listen to your patient. Listening is critical to managing telephone calls. Callers don't like to be asked to repeat themselves or their information. So make sure when you are talking with them, you get all of that right away and you're listening to them. Actively listen to them. Now there is so much more to this chapter, but I'm going to leave it up to you to read and discover. And know that in your lab classes, you will probably be working with some of this week. So be ready for that as you come into your labs. And finally, Chapter 13. Now, Chapter 13 is dealing with managing paper medical records, but more often than not, you'll probably be working with electronic charts. But that doesn't mean that it isn't important for you to know. A medical record contains all the written documentation that relates to a patient's health care, regardless of whether it is paper-based or electronic. The medical record is a legal document, and it is a permanent document, a tool that's used by all medical staff to communicate within their office and within other offices. So when you're using electronic charts, there's a couple of rules. First and foremost, if you didn't document, it wasn't done. It didn't happen. That's the model that we followed. If it wasn't documented, it wasn't done. Entries should always be written in black or blue ink, but typically black is what we want to use. They should be handwritten if you're using a paper chart and easy to read. You also want to make sure you sign and date all entries. Documenting should be factually based on statements made by the patient and the physician's assessment, not your own opinion. Now, we're all human and errors happen, right? But when you're making a correction in the medical record, you always want to make sure that it is done by the individual who made it. So if you find an error that somebody else made, you cannot correct it. First and foremost, you never erase an error and you never get to use whiteout. That's something that goes away now. It no longer exists in your world. What you want to do is simply draw one line through your error so that way the original entry can still be seen. Put your initials and the date above the line and write the word error. Then after the correction, you can now put the correct information after that. And lastly, it's important to talk about who owns the medical record. So the record is really technically owned by the patient. But yes, the facility that created the information owns the physical or electronic record. Patients have the right at any time to view their medical records, and if they want to, they can always be present, have a medical staff present to help them through that information if they want that. But now, because the patient does own the medical record, we need to have their permission in order to release anything. That is why all patients are to receive a notice of privacy practices when they are a new patient and then every year after that. This form means that the patient gives consent to the medical office to use and disclose their information for treatment, payment, and operations as defined by HIPAA. Alright guys, that is all I have for Module 6 this week. Let's talk about your assignments for the week. So this week, I do apologize, we're back to doing discussion boards. So your initial discussion board this week is going to be due on Tuesday. Oh, those are not the correct dates. I apologize. So it will be due Tuesday, May 9th, and your reply post will be due May 13th by midnight. You will have your TDAP VIS summary to write for this week. That will be due no later than Sunday, May 14th by midnight. And you do have one quiz this week containing 20 multiple choice or true-false questions. That will be due no later than, again, Sunday, May 14th by midnight. As always, guys, if you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to me, either via course messaging or via my direct line on campus. You can find that on your course homepage under the instructor information. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you. I hope you have a wonderful Module 6, and I will see you guys again in Module 7. Bye now.